I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar series of the Cybersecurity and Information Systems Information Analysis Center, CSIAC. Today's presentation is entitled Comply to Connect. My name is Steve Warzala. I'm the CSIAC Outreach Manager. A couple of administrative notes before we begin. All phones have been muted except for the presenters, and questions may be asked anytime during the presentation by utilizing the chat function. Time permitting, your questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our sponsor, the Defense Technical Information Center, DTIC. The funding that DTIC provides enables CSIAC to conduct these webinars. It's my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's webinar, Mr. Tony Gillespie. He is currently serving as the Public Sector Strategist with Forescout Technologies, Inc. Tony recently retired as the Assistant Chief of Staff G6 for the Marine Corps Installation East. He has nearly 35 years of experience in the Marine Corps and civil service. Tony was video, data, and security for all USMC bases on the East Coast south of Quantico, Virginia. He was also the primary architect and led the C2C pilot for the DoD. I will now turn the presentation over to Mr. Gillespie. Good afternoon, Tony. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. This is Tony Gillespie. I apologize. Some of you don't recognize my voice. It's allergy season, so I sound a bit like Darth Vader. Being a Star Wars fan, that's perfectly acceptable to me. So we'll immediately go straight into the presentation. So Comply to Connect. In 2013, I was the G6, the Assistant Chief of Staff G6 and CIO for Marine Corps Installations East. And I had received a budget cut, a manpower cut, and some mandates to increase cybersecurity in order to meet CCRI, cybersecurity inspections, and do better on scores on how we kept our cybersecurity posture. And what I was having to struggle with was I had 16 people that were just doing basic fundamental security functions, which is, patching, remediation, and validation of fundamental security stuff. And I just couldn't see where we were getting any traction in there. We couldn't get above 65 or 70% compliant. We were getting 410 patches a year. We only had 206 to 207 work days, and we just couldn't keep up. So I went to the whiteboard with a bunch of smart folks and said, I want to automate the entire thing. I want to do a discovery of everything touching the network, every IP device, regardless of what it is. And then I want to do a classification of that device. What is it? Is it a camera, a printer, a license plate recognition, RFID, radio frequency identification device? Is it industrial control systems? Is it SCADA? Is it a laptop? Is it a workstation? If it's a traditional device, laptop or workstation operating system, is that operating system the right operating system? Is that user authorized on that network? Is that computer authorized on that segment of the network? And then do a cyber hygiene inspection. Is the antivirus, anti-malware, and signature files up to date? Are they running? Is the antivirus and EPO, HPSS security system talking to the right EPO server? Is it reporting all the right correct stuff? Are all the agents running? And are all the CAT, in our case, we had CAT 1, 2, and 3 vulnerabilities, CAT 1 being unacceptable risks. Are all the CAT 1s patched? And are the CAT 2s and CAT 3s pre-staged for next reboot? And I wanted all that done as part of the login screen before they got a control, a login. And I wanted it all done in 45 seconds. So my staff told me it was impossible, but 90 days later, we actually had a working model. And this is not a Forescout sales pitch. I do work for Forescout simply because they were the only of all of the top network access control companies, the only one that does IoT, Internet of Things, agentless discovery of everything on the network. They found things on my network nobody else even looked at, which was quite the shock. So that's what it was. It was a completely automated way to maintain 99% compliance across the board. And then what else can it solve? The second and third order impacts, some of the other things that it could do. Oh, look, there's my picture. What do you got? I wanted to know everything on the network. I wanted to know its hygiene. I wanted it to be up to standard, but then we wanted to look at how do we make it better. So we started learning and tweaking the entire process. By doing a continuous monitoring and asset and license discovery and software discovery, we learned a lot of things very quickly. Certain computers wouldn't take patches. Now, our touch labor team was completely separate from our install team, which was completely separate from our refresh team. And our cyber team didn't talk to any of them. So the 20-year-old kid who used to work at McDonald's that goes out and touches the same computer every week to patch it wasn't going back and telling people, I patch that computer every week. Well, the third time that we've had to send him on site, we've actually started losing money. So the system was set up that if a computer didn't take a patch after 3 times, it would automatically cut a ticket. We use Remedy, we tested ServiceNow and a bunch of others. We use BMC Remedy. It would cut a ticket to the refresh or re-image team. And if it was due for refresh, it would go ahead and move it in the front of the queue. If it wasn't, it would go ahead and set it up for a re-image, because you started to lose money by having to go back and repeatedly touch that workstation. Other things were we were looking at how to maintain our software portfolio. In the Marine Corps, maybe some people do it well. We had a horrible portfolio management system. We had so many programs of record, proprietary software, things we couldn't patch because it had to use a 5-year-old version of Java and you had to get waivers for it. So we started reviewing all of the asset software licenses and what was being used and what was not being used. We did all this in about 90 days in the proof of concept, and then we pushed it out, and I briefed it it was a joint project between me and the Air Force, and so we had the Army and the Navy and the Air Force and OSD come in and look at the results, and then we had an independent validation of the results done. So since then, I retired about a year ago, and I've been pushing Comply to Connect. Here recently, Comply to Connect is in the National Defense Authorization Act and was signed into law and is a mandate now. So the next couple of slides, we're going to zip through pretty quick. There's the plan for security and continuous monitoring capability and Comply to Connect policy in the 2017 NDAA. That for me was a culmination of my last 10 years of work. I had all the bases on the Eastern Seaboard, and what I was trying to do was I wanted to maintain a 99% compliance and security hygiene posture across the board. And in the pilot, we were able to do that very easily. So, in fact, if you Google Comply to Connect, you'll see their article in there from GovExec that Dr. Latier, the DA for the Marine Corps, did, where he saw an entire region, a third of the Marine Corps, at 100% compliance. We maintained that for about an hour and a half or 2 hours, but we actually hit 100% one day for a few hours. So the whole purpose of Comply to Connect was to try to give visibility. And I was really interested in finding out what is on the network. In 2013, IoT and all these SCADA and ICS things were just now starting to become a thing. Now it's huge, and it's going to get a lot worse. They're predicting between now and 2019, 30 billion IoT devices, and every one of them is a risk to your network. It's a risk to your security posture. My refrigerator at home is on the network. My humidor for my cigars is on the network. Everybody these days has got IP-based cameras. All that stuff is on the network. When my kids went to college 10 years ago, my son took a laptop. Now college kids are showing up with an average of 7 IP devices between printers and Xboxes and smartwatches and smartphones and all the other stuff that they bring to school now, tablets and phablets and laptops. So you can see on here that a lot of your security fundamental baseline stuff is, where's your biggest risk? It's actually your users, the people that are actually convinced that they are related to royalty in Ethiopia and they've won the lottery. And if they click here, that they'll find out how much money they've won in the lottery. What Comply to Connect does is the 5th bullet down. It's as good as you're going to get for a patch for stupid. Continuous behavioral monitoring. If a printer starts to try to access your Active Directory back in, it automatically will push that thing into a secure VLAN, cut a ticket, and give pop-ups to all the right people. If an IP-based camera tries to access, your video stack, or go from your video stack to your, one of your other databases, it'll automatically drop it into a secure VLAN. And one of the best things that we found out with Comply to Connect was it eliminated, in our case in the DoD, spillages. Before a packet can transfer the unclassed network, it looks at the computer asking for the IP and says, are you a smil.mil or a .mil? If you're a smil.mil, leaves it in that secure VLAN. For me, during NMCI and InGen, that's $12,500 per spillage that we did not have to spend taxpayer money on. So what I ended up doing was I took 16 people who were doing patching, and we cut that to 4 running the system, and 4 of the billets went away. People got promoted or retired, and I got rid of some billets. And then the other staff of 8 went into doing proactive stuff. We called it hunting pregnant alligators. Instead of spending all day wrestling alligators in your pond, you could go out and do some hunting of some pregnant alligators and try to keep some alligators out of your pond. That makes a big difference when you've got all of those log files and analytics and stuff that you're pulling in, that you're not doing anything with all that information except maybe a monthly CAN report. A monthly CAN report is not doing your network or your security posture any good. So ideally, you go ahead and you start pushing that stuff through. So one of the best things about it was we integrated using a couple of orchestrators. We tested a bunch, and I'm happy to tell you which ones worked. And actually, none of them that we tested didn't work. They all worked. And so we were able to integrate disparate tools, because everybody has a ton of tools, and typically use about 20 to 25% of that tool's capability. By the end of Comply to Connect pilot, my rule was if you're not using 80% of that tool, we get rid of it. So I was able to eliminate about $15 million out of my operational maintenance budget and tools that we weren't going to use anymore. That made, everybody in my leadership pretty happy. They didn't give me any of that money back, but we were able to discover, classify, mitigate, assess, and then do analytics, and then continue to grow the system so that it provided more every time we went into it. So here's the slide on what the Internet of Things is coming at us. We're at 5 billion and going to 30 billion. And then here's where you're getting targeted. 3 weeks ago, it was just in the news, a major college campus got hacked by their vending machines, of all things. And they went from the vending machine to the LED lighting system, and from the LED lighting system, they were doing a denial of service attack on the DNS, searching for Chinese restaurants. It's kind of funny, except that a major college campus, every 15 minutes, their network went offline because of a denial of service attack by a Pepsi machine. And every one of these things that's out there is a risk to your network, and you absolutely need to be able to see them and watch the behaviors. And if they do anything stupid, you need to be able to lock them out of the network and lock them out immediately. So these were the required capabilities. I'm not going to read the slide to you. It's just not my way of doing things. One of the best things that we did was all the tools that we used standard API calls. So if they were industry standard APIs, we could integrate them and we could connect these things together. Best part about it, no agent in the discovery process. By being able to do a discovery with no agent, there's about 10 different ways that the product actually pulled information out and gave you 250 pieces of information about every workstation or device on your network. Being a former cybersecurity manager moving into a G6 CIO kind of role, for me, the holy grail was the alias table that it created. It gave me a username, a MAC address, a machine name, an IP address, the switch, and the port on the switch, and the jack on the wall that the switch was using. So I not only had all the user information and the box information, but I knew within 5 feet where that particular user was sitting. That was a pretty big deal for me. And as we added power, water, sewer meters, wireless RFID meters all over the base, license plate recognition systems, you name it, all the stuff that they continue to add to the base. Every time something popped on the network, we were able to know immediately and determine whether or not that thing should be on that network. Was it in the right group, and what its security posture was. Policy enforcement, everybody's got different policies. You can script the policy to do it however you want. You can do notify only. You can do pop-ups to the users. You can cut a ticket in your trouble ticket system, or you can take actions. And those actions can be anything from remediate the box to lock the box out of the network, or in our case, we also had a power management feature. We could power the box off if I needed to. Rogue device plugged into the network. It was an immediate drop into a secure VLAN and lock out of the network. Conference rooms was a big one for us for rogue devices. Our conference rooms were designed so that the only thing they could get is port 80 and port 443 outside of the firewall. And so they did not touch internal to our network at all. So we did a report called the Network Assessment Reporting and Compliance, NARC. I developed what I wanted in my executive report, and my folks were able to build me a custom report. They gave me my cyber hygiene at all times in real time. And that was what I needed for situational awareness. And I actually gave the URL to that to my higher headquarters and their higher headquarters so that they could at any time pull up what our hygiene looked like. So the desired state, visibility, understanding of your configuration. We tied this to the CMDB, the Change Management Database. Most everybody's into IDLE v.3 these days after that and Lean Six Sigma, trying to figure out how to do your CMDB. We could update the CMDB automatically. Rapid or immediate response to incidents and breaches. Real-time dashboards. Audits. When DISA came in to do their last CCRI, we literally gave them access to the system. What was usually a 5-day colonoscopy was a 3-day validation, and we walked out of there with 91, and I'll take that any day of the week. So we had a number of positive mission outcomes. Kind of what I talk about when I give this brief is the so what factor. We realigned staff. I had a mandate to reduce some resources. Just got to be careful when you reduce resources, because sometimes that's a double-edged sword, and you can set 99% as your minimum standard. Our second and third order impacts were by adding the power module. We really increased security 2 different ways. Not only did we keep the boxes secure, but if you didn't touch your keyboard for an hour, it would do an assessment of your box, patch it up to date, reboot it, make sure all the stuff was running on it, and then power it off. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but in the DoD, everybody just kind of pulled their cat and went home for the day. And that 350-watt power supply and 100-watt monitor would go into sleep mode. Well, that's according to what we were paying at 6.5 cents a kilowatt hour. Computer used about 12 cents a day, and they were on between 10 and 12 hours. You cut them off for 12 hours now, and you were saving between 5 and 6 cents a day per computer. People go on leave, you got weekends, they're all powered off. Shocked after my first 90-day period to find out we got a report that said we were saving $43,000 a week in power, $2.3 million a year. I didn't believe it. I thought the vendor was just, jerking my chain, trying to hump my leg to get more money out of me for more licenses. But we had the Navy facilities guys come in, and they validated. I met my 5-year mandate to reduce power in 6 months, and was just shocked at the return on investment on that. Actually paid for the software that I used for the power license. The Navy didn't give me any of that money back, but I was able to reduce the taxpayer bill, which, for me as a taxpayer now, and then was important to me. Was always trying to find a way to save money. Immediate action for 0 days, because we had 2 products doing patch. I discovered that SCCM for our particular configuration install with so many programs of record was only about 60% reliable. And when you got 50 or 60,000 boxes, you can't go touch 10 to 20,000 boxes 3 times a week. And I just lost my video. There we go. So we added IBM BigFix. There's a number of other products out there, but IBM BigFix for us was fiscally and as far as service and production wise met the right standards that we needed, and it had that power module. So asset and license management we've already talked about, and then the portfolio management. Best part of portfolio management, we started with Adobe Acrobat. I had 1,000 Adobe Acrobat Pro licenses, and I was paying about $268K a year. So, $268 for a license per year. And it was mainly for my civilians and my supervisors to do digital signatures for performance appraisals and awards and contracts and things that require digital signature for workflow. And the system came back and said I'd never used more than 90 at one time. Used all 1,000, but never more than 90 at one time. I've been paying that bill for about 5 or 6 years, and the Adobe guy came in September to, hump my leg and get his $268K check. And I just told him, I said, I can't afford this. This is a complete waste of taxpayer money. I gotta come up with a better way. I'm not gonna renew my licensing. And he says, well, let's stand up a live cycle server and put 200 floating licenses on it. That'll run you about $35,000, and you'll save $225K. And so that's what we ended up doing. And I asked him, I said, well, why didn't you do this, 4 years ago? And he goes, well, you were paying your bill every year. sales guys are going to do exactly what sales guys do. You know, they're going to reach in your pocket. So you have to figure out how to do that portfolio management and save money yourself. And then you can use those dollars, or as you take budget reduction cuts, you've got some leverage. So that's 30 minutes on Comply to Connect. I was told 45, but that's kind of the Comply to Connect in a nutshell. And I was going to go 45, but I'm losing my voice, so I think I'll give you a little bit of your time back today. If there's
okay, Tony. Tony, this is Steve, and I want to thank you for the presentation. It was it's quite a system. I think it's pretty significant. What you've been able to accomplish. The variety of examples you gave, and the savings on cost and power, and time and manpower. It's very impressive. You've done quite a good job of being a steward of our taxpayer dollars. So personally, I'd like to thank you for that. And if your voice will hold out, got a couple questions. If you've got a couple minutes. So I'm just kind of curious as to if you give us an idea of how difficult, what does it take to actually implement and install a C2C solution on an enterprise network.
All right. Yeah, I can tell you, we went through 6 months of failures and stumbles, and everybody sees the win at the end. They don't see all that back end nightmare stuff. Now that the processes have been documented and the way ahead, even with disparate tools, has been defined, it's probably for an enterprise of one place, say 10,000 nodes, and at a place, you're talking about a 3 to 4 week process to get your baseline stuff up in a do no harm kind of posture. You put it in passive mode, you do your discovery, you do your assessments, you get all your stuff together, and then you start making those baby steps. And within 60 days, you should be fully operational.
Okay. All right. Well, that's within a couple months to be fully operational. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. And can you maybe describe the typical resources and training that would be required to implement this?
I can. We started small with about 1,000 nodes, and then moved to 26,000. And what we did was I had 2 of my cyber engineers oversight. I needed 2 network engineers and 2 sysadmins, because I wanted my server and operating system specialists to all understand the process, and I wanted 2 deep. You could do it with 1 deep, but it's always better to have 2. And the training really surprised me. Was typically 4 days of hard training on your discovery, network access control, and it's 5 days for us for Big Fix. So it was a 9-day training process, and I threw 6 resources during the proof of concept, and then backed it down to 3 full-time employees afterwards. And that was for 56,000 nodes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's seems fairly reasonable for the for the return that you were describing. So that doesn't seem too bad at all. I guess the other thing I'm curious about is how does the assessment and the remediation process, what kind of impact did that have on the user experience? Did you have any kind of feedback on that aspect?
We did. My mandate was 45 seconds or less during the boot up cycle, except for Patch Tuesday. We discovered we had to, that Patch Tuesday is never going to go good, and you're just going to deal with whatever comes down the line. But other than that, 45 seconds was the maximum, and it would only remediate Cat 1s. And what it would do after that, it would preload Cat 2s, Cat 3s, and the next time you didn't touch your keyboard for an hour. So if you went to lunch to go to PT or you shut down for the end of the day, it would go ahead and remediate all those. So the user experience was they no longer got scanned during the workday. Their experience was their computer was secure, and they didn't have. We weren't eating up the resources while they were trying to be productive.
That's awesome. That's you know that's you know during the workday, there's obviously times where things have folks have to take networks down to reset things, or fix firewalls or things of that nature. So to be able to do that, take care of that process and make sure everything is compliant, without disrupting the folks' workday. Once again, there's beneficial cost saving, the benefits right there. So it's quite impressive what you pulled off there. I guess I'd describe it as visionary, Tony.
I already told you my definition for there. It's funny. I see Neil Fitzpatrick is online. He was my deputy as a lieutenant colonel for a period of time, and we went 4 years with a zero outage while the MEF was engaged in combat operations. I never went offline for 4 years, and I was the village idiot surrounded by just absolutely brilliant people like Neil and the staff. So I'm very fortunate to have been in the position I was.
Well, 4 years without an outage, unbelievable. I mean, just it's hard to fathom. So it was really, seriously, it is absolutely impressive what you and I definitely hear you. Being surrounded with good people, smart people, that makes all the difference in the world. And giving, but setting the goal, setting the direction, and like you said, when you initially started, when you asked the folks what you wanted to do, they said it couldn't be done. It was impossible, and the people you had working with you did the impossible. So once again, I just have to tip my hat and congratulate you on the job. And I want to thank you for taking the time to share your information with us and your experiences. Like I said, very, very impressive, and thank you for taking the time to to be with us and share your knowledge with us. I appreciate it very much.
It was my pleasure. I'm kind of an evangelist for Comply to Connect because it is my baby.
Yep. Yeah, I hear. I hear you there. So, okay. Well, I know you've got a cold, and your voice is having some issues today. So, once again, I'll sign off. And thank you, and thank the audience for joining us today. If I will make a comment, if you do have any questions after the fact, you can send questions to info@csiac.org, and if we do get some questions in, we'll let Tony know about that, and if he's got time, maybe we can get some answers for you. So once again, thank you, Tony, and I'd like to wish everybody to have a good rest of the day. Take care, everyone.